Revealed. Maid's daughter, just 12, exposes 250M scam with incredible Arabic, a life-changing hero. Amina stepped into the sunlight that poured like golden syrup over their small suburban neighborhood in Texas. With the weight of her mother's hopes resting on her shoulders, she felt both frightened and fierce. At just 12, she was bright-eyed and ready to take on the world. The language of her grandmother, a melody of Arabic words, flowed through her, connecting her to a legacy richer than any of the shiny things her classmates flaunted. Today, she was translating for Mrs. Khalil, the elderly neighbor with stories carved from a history that scattered like autumn leaves. Amina's heart beat fast as she listened to Mrs. Khalil, who sat hunched under the shade of Grand Oak, her wrinkled hands gesturing as if they could shape the air around her. "These stores," she murmured, "they cheat us, take our money, our trust." Amina's brow furrowed. Discrepancies flew through her mind like warning signals. Numbers didn't add up. Their voices seemed desperate for clarity. Before she could think, she stood a little straighter. "What kind of cheating, Mrs. Khalil?" she asked, feeling a curious thrill chase away her doubts. The elderly woman leaned in, whispering truths that wrapped Amina in heavy shadows. A 250 million scam targeting those just trying to survive a betrayal layered in trust and deception. Amina's chest tightened, her breath caught in her throat. The struggles her family faced echoed in her mind. They were fragile, yet bound together by fierce love. Was this her battle to fight? She felt the pull of justice where her heart was tangled with loyalty. Gathering her courage, she looked into Mrs. Khalil's eyes, seeing a flicker of hope there that ignited something fierce within her. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you could drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the week spun into a web of tension, Amina began to gather her friends and neighbors in the local park after school. They spoke in hushed tones, hoping the wind would carry their dreams and fears, a chorus of souls united against a common enemy. Slowly, they began to clarify their plan, their minds drawn together like constellations in the night sky. Amina felt a new strength rise within her. She was more than just a girl, she was a leader with a voice, but the darkness lurked just beyond their whispers. As her findings evoked tremors through the community, shadows cast by hidden figures threatened to engulf her. Friends who once laughed and teased began to pull away, afraid of the consequences that courage might bring. Yet, her mother's gentle encouragement became a quilt of comfort in the storm. Their late-night conversations held the warmth of resilience, reflecting the struggles of their shared journey. The stakes were growing higher, her heart pounding with the weight of what they were risking. As she prepared to tell the world, dread settled like a chill in her bones when a message appeared threatening, chilling words hinting at dark secrets that could shatter everything she held dear. Amina looked into the mirror, deciphering her reflection, a fierce girl on the brink of change, caught between her family's safety and the call to speak truth. Each breath was a battle, leaving her torn as she contemplated the future. Would she clutch her voice tightly or allow it to be silenced by fear? With courage flickering inside her, she stood ready, knowing that the next step would define not just her, but her entire neighborhood. The decision loomed closer, and the weight of the world rested in her hands. What would she choose? Amina woke up that morning with a dull ache anchored in her stomach. She turned to find her mother sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug. The scent of chamomile filled the air, but Amina's heart felt knotted with fear. "Are you okay, sweetie?" her mother asked softly, concern etched across her weary face. "Just thinking about today," Amina replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Today was the day she would reveal the scam to the community, to bring light to the shadows lurking around them. She didn't want to cause any more fear, but it was gnawing at her like a stubborn burr under her skin. Her mother reached across the table, placing a hand on Amina's. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you," she said, her eyes shimmering with both pride and worry. Amina nodded, grateful for her mother's belief in her. Today was about more than just numbers and schemes. It was about standing up for the people who had been silenced for too long. It was about Mrs. Khalil. It was about making things right. As she headed to the park, she felt like a soldier marching into battle. The air around her buzzed with anticipation. Neighbors were already gathering, their murmurs creating a low hum reverberating through the crisp morning air. She could see her friend Zayn waving, but he didn't look happy. Fear was etched on his face. "Amina, are you sure this is a good idea?" he asked, glancing around as if monsters lurked in the trees. "People are scared. What if they don't want to hear it?" She could feel the weight of that uncertainty pressing down on her. But the flicker of hope from Mrs. Khalil's eyes and the urgent cries for justice from her neighbors spurred her on. "We have to try Zayn," she insisted. "People deserve to know." Zayn hesitated before nodding reluctantly. "All right, but just be careful. I don't want to see you hurt." Taking a deep breath, Amina moved to the front of the group, her heart thumping wildly against her ribs. The crowd quieted, their eyes turning to her, a mix of curiosity and skepticism swirling among them. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling but firm. "I know things have been hard lately." Her words poured out like the sunshine breaking through dark clouds, as she spoke about the discrepancies in the local stores and the betrayal that had wound itself into the fabric of their community. With each person's face, Amina felt herself gaining strength as whispered doubts transformed into fired-up resolve. But as her story unfolded, the air shifted. She noticed a shadow crossing the park, a figure lurking at the edge of the trees where nobody else seemed to notice. A shiver raced down her spine. The crowd began murmuring louder, the energy shifting from hopeful to anxious. People shared concerned glances, and that shadowy figure began to step forward. It was a man she recognized from the corner store, his expression twisted with something Amina couldn't quite place, but knew was trouble. She stumbled slightly, suddenly feeling small. "What are you doing here?" she confronted, holding her ground, though her legs felt like jelly. "I think you should stop talking, little girl," he said, his voice low and menacing, cutting through the air like a knife. "Or you might find yourself in a world of pain." Amina's heart raced, the implications of his threat wrapping tightly around her. Was this the darkness she had feared? Her breath caught in her throat as the crowd fell silent, fear bubbling beneath the surface like a shaken soda bottle. Suddenly, she knew what she needed to do. This was not just about exposing deceit, but standing firm in the face of fear. "I want to stop," she declared, summoning her courage. "Not now, not ever." The collective gasp from the crowd echoed her determination. But what would come next? Would the shadows close in around her, or could she shine a light so bright that even the darkest fears would retreat? Amina closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking in the gravity of her choice. Today would change everything. Would her bravery spark a revolution, or would it ignite the fury of those who wanted to silence her? She stood resolute, ready for whatever came next. The tension in the park was palpable, like a tightrope stretched thin overhead. Amina's voice reverberated in her chest, drowning out the chaos swirling around her. The man's string of threats hung heavy in the air, each word weighing down her resolve. She could feel Zayn's nervous energy at her back, the way he shifted slightly, as if preparing to spring into action. "Is this the kind of fear we want to live in?" she challenged, her voice rising above the anxious murmurs. "Is fear going to silence us forever?" Amina scanned the crowd. Old Mr. Rahman, usually tough as nails, looked pale. The Lanes, who had recently lost their savings, clutched each other's hands, wide-eyed. She had to reach them, embolden them. It felt like a million thoughts collided in her mind, each urging her to stand strong. "Listen," she cried. "This isn't just my battle. It's ours. People have been tricked, lied to, and robbed. If we don't come together now, then what hope do we have?" From the periphery, The shadowy man stepped closer, his face emerging from the fog of uncertainty. Fear prickled down her spine, making the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She could see his fingers twitch, maybe itching to grab something hidden in his pockets. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to meet his gaze, refusing to blink first. The crowd stirred, uncertainty painted on their faces, but there was a shift. Murmurs of agreement rippled like a rejuvenating wave. Amina's right, someone shouted from the back. We want to be silent. That was all she needed. Solidarity. A shared voice was a stronger weapon than any threat. We have to stand together, Amina urged. It's time to take back our community from those who would harm us. A few people stepped forward, emboldened by her words. One by one, they joined her at the forefront, their faces lit with determination. Zayn moved closer to her side, fists clenched with a mix of fear and pride. Then the shadowy figure exploded into action. You think the LL stand with you? He growled, taking a step forward as if to intimidate them. What if they regret it? You're nothing but children. That hurt. Amina felt the sting of his dismissal, but she refused to let it crush her. I may be young, but I know right from wrong, she replied steadily. And together, we are stronger than you think. She felt a surge of energy fueled, not just by her own resolve, but by the brave faces gathering around her, each one a flicker of light against the lurking darkness. Don't let him scare you, Zayn shouted, and the crowd echoed it. We stand with Amina. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted once more. It felt like the breath before a storm. Amina could see fear and hope warring in the crowd's eyes. Would they take the plunge with her or retreat back into the shadows? Her heartbeat synced with the rhythm of the murmurs growing louder. Someone was stepping closer, a woman in the front who had lost her life savings to the scam. We can't let fear run our lives anymore, she declared, her voice shaky but fierce. We have to fight. Amina held her breath, watching as more hands shot up in agreement, whispering, yes, and let us fight back. The shadowy man faltered, eyes narrowing as if weighing his next move. It was a moment of turning tides, a collective breath of hope filling the air. Amina's pulse raced. Was this the moment they could finally turn fear into action? Then, without warning, the man stormed forward, the crowd gasping. But before she could react, Zayn moved in front of her. Get behind me, he urged, a protective fierceness sparking in his eyes. Amina felt the adrenaline surge through her veins. What would happen now? Would they collapse under intimidation or rise as one? She had stepped into a fight far more significant than herself, and whatever the outcome, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning to end that tense heartbeat. Amina made a choice in her heart. If we stand together today, nothing can take away our strength. The crowd roared, but would it be enough to keep the shadows at bay? As the man advanced, it was evident a confrontation loomed. Amina knew they were on the verge of something monumental, something that might just change everything. But as the man moved closer, was there more lurking in the shadows than just him? What awaited them at the intersection of bravery and chaos? The shadowy man loomed large, his movements swift and predatory. Amina felt her heart thunder in her chest. Everything was at stake in that moment. Before she could react, Zayn stepped forward with a stance that radiated defiance, although she could see the tightness in his jaw betraying his own fear. Leave her alone, Zayn shouted. His voice cracked on a strain, but he stood firm. The crowd gasped softly at his bravery, surprise flickering in faces that just moments ago seemed lost in despair. But the threat sneered back, his confidence swelling at their fear. You've rallied your little crowd, but what will they do when it really counts? They'll scatter like roaches when the light comes on. The man's words dripped disdain, an open challenge that hung in the air. Not if we stand together, Amina cried, her voice slicing through the tension. She was surprised at her own strength. They won run. They'll fight. For our homes. For our futures. The murmurs rose again, a swelling tide of purpose. She felt the warmth of active solidarity crackling around her like a protective shield. People behind her began to shout slogans inspired by her courage. together we stand. And no more silence. The man faltered, his bravado wavering. You think you can shake me? I own this place. I run things around here. Not anymore. A voice shouted from the sidelines, echoing the growing spirit of the crowd. They were feeling bolder now, eyes lighting with determination. Old Mr. Amon stepped up, his voice trembling but steady. You may have taken from us, but we are not powerless. Amina caught Zayn's eye, a spark of camaraderie igniting between them. They were no longer alone. They had become part of something larger than themselves. It didn't matter how many people were still too afraid to join. Every voice raised in unity was a small victory. We'll hold you accountable, Amina declared. You think you can intimidate us? We are done being scared. We want our lives back. The shadowy figure scoffed, but his bravado was fading. For the first time, Amina saw a flicker of apprehension in his eyes. He could sense the shifting currents around him, the collective strength brewing like a storm. Just then, the crowd surged forward, emboldened by Amina's bravery and fueled by the fights they each had lost. Some reached for their phones, capturing this moment of unity, while others stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a protective barrier around Amina and Zayn. But then, something unexpected happened. The air shifted, and police sirens wailed on the horizon, drawing closer. We're not alone, Zayn whispered, relief flooding his voice. Amina's heart raced with a rush of hope. The cavalry was coming, and reinforcements would bolster their resolve. All it took was that initial spark of courage that had ignited something powerful. Now, let us finish what we started, Amina shouted, her spirit soaring. As the shadows of authority approached, Amina hoped they would stand with the community, that the frightened faces would transform into a chorus of strength. She could feel the potential energy around her, the first whispers of a more substantial change beginning to blossom. But as the sirens grew louder, Amina wondered, would the police see the strength in their unity, or simply the chaos of a mob? And with that lingering question, a new layer of uncertainty settled over the park, thickening the air once more. Would they all emerge unscathed, or was this just the beginning of a battle far beyond the park? The police cars screeched into the park, their lights spinning wildly, bathing the scene in a flash of red and blue. Words hung heavy in the air, an electric mixture of anger and hope. Amina's pulse raced as she watched uniformed officers spill from the vehicles, looking for the instigator, the shadowy man who had threatened their fragile unity. Stay strong, Zayn urged, squeezing Amina's hand. His grip spoke of unyielding resolve. She could see the growing crowd, faces turned toward the approaching officers, a sea of uncertainty rippling through them. The shadowy man eyed the police with an expression that shifted between irritation and fear. You don't know what you're getting into, he growled, his bravado crumbling further. Amina took a deep breath, the moment a tightrope walked between triumph and disaster. She stepped forward, feeling the weight of every gaze on her. We're not afraid of you anymore, she shouted, her voice carrying. You have terrorized us for too long. This is our time to stand together. The officers, now alert, scanned the crowd. One of them, a tall woman with a stern expression, approached the man. Step away from the crowd. We need to talk. The man's arrogance faltered, and behind him, Amina sensed an almost collective holding of breath. This doesn't end well for you, he hissed, but his resolve seemed to waver as the authoritative presence of the police loomed larger. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, excitement blending with anxiety. The officers spoke amongst themselves as the tension shifted, and the park brimmed with raw emotion. Amina could taste the fear and hope swirling side by side, a tangible force building toward a breakthrough. Amid the noise, she turned to Zayn. What if they don't help us? She whispered, a pang of dread tightening her chest. Zayn's eyes were fierce, reflecting a burning determination. Then we fight them too. We cannot turn back. As the police engaged the shadowy man, Amina shouted once more, we deserve to live without fear. This is our home, and we are reclaiming it. The chorus of voices echoed back her declaration. Our home, our voice. Suddenly, The police began to take action. They approached the man, commanding him to put his hands up. The crowd's collective breath seemed to synchronize in that moment. Amina felt the weight of uncertainty beginning to lift, just slightly, but still present as she watched. Her heart beat faster with every second. The shadowy figure hesitated, a flicker of panic flashing across his face. A cacophony of shouts erupted among the crowd, the sounds swelling to a climactic protest against intimidation. The fear that had held them captive for so long was slowly dissolving, replaced by resolve. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crash echoed from the back of the park, causing the crowd to jump. A group of people sprinted in, holding signs and chanting fiercely. "Justice for the community," they yelled, bolstering the mood even further. "Who are they?" Zayn whispered, eyes wide with surprise. I don't know," Amina replied, her curiosity piqued. But as more bodies flooded into the space, Amina felt the energy shift once more. What had begun as a confrontation now felt like a movement, something much larger. While the chaotic scene unfolded, a nagging thought entered Amina's mind. What if this was only the beginning? What more was at stake beyond this man, beyond their small community? And as a sense of momentum gathered strength, Amina wondered just how far they could push against this tide of injustice before it led them to something they weren't prepared for. As the chanting grew louder, the atmosphere in the park shifted. Amina could feel it in her bones, a surge of collective courage enveloping them. She glanced around, searching for Zayn's reassuring presence, and felt a surge of gratitude. Together, they'd come this far. "Whoever they are, they're on our side," Zayn noted, his voice barely rising above the crowd. Amina nodded, the adrenaline coursing through her, replacing the fear that had once held her captive. This was no longer just about the shadowy man. This was about reclaiming their voices, standing firm against adversity. The police appeared poised, their faces unreadable as they approached the man. The tension crackled in the air, thick with the possibilities of what could unfold. Amina fought the urge to reach for Zayn's hand again. She needed to be steady, both for herself and for those around her. The man, seeing the growing crowd and hearing the rallying cries, began to step back. The officers moved closer, extending a hand toward him. "You're surrounded. This is your last chance to walk away peacefully." "Peace? You think you can find peace here?" He spat, his bravado fading. Amina could see the wheels turning in his mind as he evaluated his options. A wave of disgust washed over her. How many times had he used intimidation and fear to manipulate their lives? The chanting changed pitch, morphing into a rhythmic beat that echoed through the trees. No more fear. No more threat. The shadows that had loomed over them for so long began to recede, like a dark cloud being pushed away by a fresh breeze. Suddenly, the man lunged. In a split second, the mood shifted again. But this time, the crowd did not back down. They surged forward as one. It was a powerful wave of unity, eclipsing the fear that had enveloped them for so long. "Stop!" shouted the lead officer, just as she bolted towards the man, her voice cutting through the chaos. In that heartbeat, Amina could feel the raw energy bursting forth, their collective spirit refusing to be silenced. The officers quickly restrained the man, handcuffs clinking around his wrists. The crowd erupted into cheers, each shout a declaration of their newfound strength. Amina felt her heart swell with pride and hope, a stark contrast to the anxiety that had gripped her only moments before. But beneath the exhilaration lay a layer of uncertainty. Amina's gaze caught those of the new protesters who had rushed into the park. Their determination mirrored her own, yet felt somehow different, driven by an urgency that made the hair on her arms stand on end. Who were these people? She thought. Were they here to celebrate or to stir something deeper? The larger implications of their movement now loomed over her, questions she hadn't dared to ponder just hours before. What next? A voice broke through her reverie, a fervent shout from the crowd as they turned their attention to Amina. She suddenly felt the weight of their expectations, eyes filled with hope and anticipation resting on her shoulders. Together, she began, feeling every word rise from her core. This is just the beginning. We need to keep standing together. Fight for our rights, our dignity. The chant changed once more, of unity and strength, as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Just then, a tall figure stepped forward from the group who had just arrived. Clad in a jacket and holding a megaphone, they called out, "We have a message for you, a crucial plan that involves not just this community, but the entire city. Are you ready for the next step?" Amina's heart raced. What could possibly follow this victory? Did they have what it takes to carry it forward? And as the crowd erupted once again in cheers, the question loomed heavily. Were they prepared for the consequences of taking their fight beyond the park, into a world that might not be ready for their unity? Amina stepped forward, her heart pounding. The figure with the megaphone, a strong, confident presence, held the crowd's attention. A chill ran down Amina's spine. This was a defining moment, and she could feel the gravity of it enveloping her like a warm but heavy blanket. "Who are you?" she called out, the words escaping almost before she could think. The crowd murmured, their curiosity piqued. The figure smiled, a spark of excitement lighting up their face. "I'm Samir," they said, their voice clear and strong. "I'm part of a larger movement. We connected with groups all across the city. We're not just here to support you. We want to unite and amplify your voices even further." Amina looked around at her friends. Zayn nodded encouragement, and others began to step closer, eager to hear more. Samir's energy was contagious, igniting the crowd's emotions like dry brush in a wildfire. "What does this mean for us?" Amina asked, pushing through her nerves. "Are we really ready to expand this?" "Yes. We have plans for a massive, citywide march next month," Samir explained, their enthusiasm electrifying. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's about everyone who has faced the same fear and oppression." Amina felt a mixture of thrill and apprehension. Her voice was rising with the collective joy, but tinged with uncertainty. "How can we prepare? What if it gets dangerous?" Samir paused, their eyes serious. "There are no guarantees. There will always be opposition, but we have the chance to change things, to be heard. Imagine the impact of thousands of people demanding accountability." The crowd responded with a roar. Amina felt herself smiling, but doubts still lingered. Could they really manage something so big? "Listen," Samir continued, "this is how we fight back. We need to arm ourselves with knowledge and courage. We'll organize workshops, educate ourselves on our rights, and we find allies in every neighborhood." As Samir outlined the next steps with fervor, Amina noticed a woman standing on the fringe of the crowd, her expression grave. The woman's face was set, her arms crossed tightly. Why so serious? Amina thought, but a sinking feeling accompanied her curiosity. The loud cheers subsided as Amina stepped away from the crowd's attraction to Samir. She made her way through the sea of bodies, drawn towards the woman. "Excuse me," Amina said gently. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up, surprise mingling with skepticism. "Do you really believe this will work?" she asked, an edge of concern in her voice. "You think they'll just let you march and not fight back?" Amina hesitated. "We must try. This is our moment." "A moment?" The woman scoffed, shaking her head. "They'll crush you, you know. It's naive to think you can change anything without consequences." The words hit Amina like a slap. They echoed in her mind, racing alongside her heartbeat. Was this endless energy from the crowd simply a fleeting moment, or could it lead to real change? A fear crept in, a reversal of the earlier excitement. What would this united front really demand from them? Just then, the crowd erupted again, echoing Samir's rallying cries. Amina turned back, feeling the magnetism pulling her toward them. It was as if she were caught between two worlds, the hope-filled energy and the stark warnings of reality. "Are we ready for this?" she whispered to herself, feeling doubts bubble to the surface alongside the frenzy of cheering. As Samir continued to amplify the call to arms, Amina knew the stakes had never been higher. She needed to choose her path carefully, one that could lead toward a greater change or confront a potential descent into chaos. With emotion brewing in her chest, she looked back at the woman, who cast an unreadable glance back at her. What awaited them in this brave, new chapter of their fight? Would their voices really echo beyond this park? Amina took a deep breath, the weight of anticipation in the air hanging heavy, the crowd's energy pulsating through her. But amidst the exhilaration, a question loomed large. Could their unity withstand the tests ahead, or would it fracture under the pressure of reality? Amina's heart raced as she tried to process everything swirling around her. The roar of the crowd felt like a call to arms. It electrified her. She glanced back at the woman, now standing alone, still watching with that same somber expression. Amina could sense a shared weight, both of them caught in a storm of conflicting emotions that a sudden cheer erupted nearby, and everyone's heads turned to Samir, who was animatedly speaking about outreach plans and the workshops they would need. Amina felt the pull of the movement, the groundswell of passion from everyone around her. Yet that woman's words echoed in her mind, "Can you really change anything without consequences?" Impatient and eager, Amina stepped back toward the group. Zayn caught her eye and motioned for her to return. "You okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Amina nodded, though uncertainty crept back in. What if they retaliate? What if we get hurt? She was surprised to hear those words leave her lips. For a fleeting moment, doubt marred her earlier enthusiasm. "What's the alternative?" Zayn replied softly. "Silence? They've had their way for too long. We owe it to ourselves to stand up." His loyalty and conviction ignited a flicker of defiance in Amina. She took a deep breath, trying to summon that energy from moments before. Just as she found her footing, Samir's voice lifted the spirits around them, their words weaving a tapestry of hope that enveloped Amina again. "We are not alone," Samir shouted, their eyes scanning the crowd, landing on familiar faces, encouragement painted in every smile and nod. They continued, "Together, we can break down barriers. Together, we will be unstoppable. We hold the power." Amina felt it wash over her like a wave. The energy surged again, washing away her fear as an invigorating sense of purpose took hold. She turned to face the crowd, now nearly pulsating with momentum. "Are you ready?" Samir cried out. The crowd roared yes. In response, a cacophony of voices that filled the air and vibrated through Amina's chest. But still, that woman lingered in the back of her mind. Had she seen what could turn into chaos? Did she know something they didn't? The thought of abandoning her fears gave Amina a thrill, but the woman's warning was like a shadowed reminder lurking behind her idealism. In that moment, she knew she had to do more than just stand there. She had to take action not just for herself, but for every voice that would be drowned out if they didn't push forward. She felt stronger now, watching Zayn and the others, the unity they had built shimmering like a beacon in the fading sunlight. "I'm in," Amina finally said, her voice cutting through the noise, directed at Zayn, then back to the crowd. "We need to take this seriously, but passionately." Samir nodded vigorously, eyes sparkling. "Yes, let us organize community meetings. Let us equip ourselves with knowledge about our rights. We educate, we advocate, and we march." Amina felt the crowd tense with excitement, the air thick with anticipation. But lurking beneath that exhilaration was an anxiety no one could see, a question that hung heavy on her lips. What if, in their pursuit of change, they brought something far worse upon themselves? As the night wore on, as plans began to take shape, Amina felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. With a determined heart, she looked at the crowd, prepared for what was ahead. How far are they willing to go to claim their voices? And what sacrifices would they have to make to ensure they were truly heard? Just then, another cheer erupted, and Amina turned, her heart pounding anew. But the gentle hum of fear nagged at her. What if their desire for change put them on a collision course with their greatest fears? As she stood there, surrounded by newfound allies and unwavering resolve, a single thought pierced through the thrill. What awaited them on this path of defiance? Would hope conquer fear, Or would it ignite a reckoning they weren't prepared for? Amina watched as the energy of the crowd pulsated like a living thing, a heartbeat echoing her own. The debates were starting with gusto, ideas flying like sparks in the air. She felt alive among them, but that nagging whisper of doubt curled in the back of her mind. "Are we ready?" she murmured to Zayn, a hint of fear threading her voice. Zayn, sensing her unease, turned to her with a reassuring smile. "This is our moment, Amina. Don't let fear blind you. This is for us." His confidence shone brightly, but the fear remained a tremor beneath her excitement. What was the cost of all this? Would they stand together or fall apart when the wind shifted? The group formed smaller huddles, passion igniting conversations that melted into strategy discussions. Amina drifted away from the center, the would-be leaders spilling words that both motivated and terrified her. She had learned that speaking truth to power was a daring act, but was she brave enough to lead? Change doesn't come easy. Someone will get hurt. A voice cut through the surrounding excitement like a knife. It belonged to Lily, a single mother who had seen the wrong side of the law, her eyes grave as she glanced at Amina. "We need a plan. Something solid. We can't just hope and wish." Amina touched her arm instinctively, a gesture of camaraderie. "What do you suggest?" Lily moved in closer, her tones dropping, urgency creeping into her words. "We need to identify our allies. Who is willing to stand with us, like really stand? The last time we made noise, they came down hard. You know that." A weight settled into Amina's stomach. The memories came flooding back, protests met with force, voices silenced, friends gone. The woman from earlier popped in her mind, her somber gaze seeming to peer into thoughts Amina struggled to articulate. Amina took a deep breath, the night air cool against her skin. "We need to be smart. If we're going to do this, we can't focus only on gathering numbers. We have to educate ourselves, know our rights. Knowledge is power." Zayn chimed in, overhearing the conversation. He stepped forward confidently, drawing the attention of nearby clusters. "We don't just get a shout. We need facts, data. We need the community on our side, not just as a faceless crowd." As they spun ideas into tangible actions, Amina felt embers of hope ignite in her chest again. She could almost taste the freedom, the collective euphoria of standing arm in arm, voices ringing in unison. But then, a shout from across the crowd broke through the buzz. "Look out!" All heads turned to the source as a group of men approached, shirts tight over bulging muscles, faces hardened, and sneakers scuffing the ground like thunder. The atmosphere shifted, whispers flooded through the throng. Fear trickled back into Amina's veins. Would this be the moment they fold back into silence? Standing on the edge of bravery and chaos, Amina found her voice, spine straightening. "We've come too far back down now. We will not be intimidated. We are here to be heard." Her pulse pounded as she forced those words into the air, met with gasps and shifting glances. The men drew closer, their predatory smiles sharpening, echoing the doubts that thrashed inside her. Would they stand with her, or would it all slip away? Questions rifled through Amina's mind. Did this moment mark a turning point for change, or was it the spark that could set off a firestorm? Would they discover the strength to fight, or were they merely moments away from collapse? Her heart raced as the tension built, shadows of conflict dancing in the distance. What was about to unfold? Would they embrace their fears, or would those fears consume them? Amina stood at the forefront, breathing deeply, grounding herself against the tumult of emotions swirling around her. The group of men loomed closer, the air thick with anxiety and a rush of uncertainty. All around her, the murmurs of the crowd morphed into a low hum, reflecting the fear they felt. "Stay together," Zayn yelled, his voice slicing through the tension. "United we stand." Amina felt the warmth of solidarity swell in her. She glanced at the faces surrounding her neighbors, friends, those who had once been strangers, now united by a common purpose. Deep down, she knew this was not just her battle. It was theirs. The men halted just a few feet away, and their laughter echoed like thunder. You think shouting will do anything? One of them sneered. But instead of retreating, Amina felt an electric pulse of courage ripple through her. Your intimidation tactics won't work here, she called back, her voice rising above the chaos. We've faced enough fear. We deserve our voices to be heard. The crowd swelled with an undercurrent of approval, but Amina knew they needed more to stand firm against this show of force. Let us share our stories, she shouted. Every one of us has been impacted by these scams, by the fear that has kept us silent. Together, we shatter the walls built up by intimidation. A hand shot up from the crowd. It was Mrs. Khalil, her frail but fierce voice quaking as she spoke. I was cheated out of my savings. I stand with you. A chorus of voices erupted, sharing cries of agreement and stories of hardship, each one adding to the tapestry of their collective strength. A sense of unity wrapped around Amina, wrapping her in warmth and determination. As the outpouring grew, the men seemed to stumble back, their confidence eroding with each story shared. Fear gave way to defiance within the crowd, as neighbors linked arms, standing shoulder to shoulder. With the waves of support rising, Amina turned, her heart full. Together, we will challenge the fear that has kept us in our homes. Let this be the moment the shadows retreat. She felt every question, every doubt, pulse through the crowd, igniting their resolve. But the men weren't done yet. You really think you can just gather and make noise? One of them shouted, trying to regain control of the moment. This isn't game. Amina felt a tremor underfoot, but she held her ground, unwavering. This isn't game. This is our lives. She shot back, emotion fueling her words. The crowd roared in response, their energy erupting as if they had just awakened from a long sleep. Then, just as the atmosphere began to shift, the police sirens wailed again, closing in faster this time. Stand your ground, Zayn yelled. This is our moment. Amina's eyes brightened. Would the police see them not as a mob, but as a united voice yearning for change? The officers approached, skepticism on their faces, but seeing the determination radiating from the crowd made them pause. One officer stepped forward, hands raised. What's happening here? This community is standing together against injustice. Amina shouted, her voice rising above all. We won't be silenced any longer. The officer hesitated for a moment, taking in the scene. Finally, she nodded slowly. Everyone deserves a voice. What can we do to help? Empowered by this unexpected support, Amina's heart soared. Help us stop the criminals taking advantage of our community, she exclaimed. Stand with us. The crowd erupted into cheers and chants of unity, but Amina felt the tension lingering, a thin thread of fear still weaving through their ranks. What would happen next? Were they truly safe? Then, footsteps from behind caught her attention. Samir appeared, a fierce determination etched across their face. I talked to the city. We can organize a rally. This is an opportunity to harness our strength. Amina's heart raced with potential. Then let us do it, she shouted. Let us spread the word. Let our unity be seen across every corner of the city. We will become the change. With the police now standing beside them, the crowd surged into momentum, fueled by hope and determination. They weren't powerless. They were a force of nature. Hand in hand, Amina and her friends stepped forward together, feeling the weight of community and solidarity whispering in the wind around them. The shadows could linger no longer. They had chosen the light. And finally, they took their first steps on the path toward reclaiming their lives no longer dictated by fear, but transformed by courage and unity. This was just the beginning, and Amina was ready to lead. As they raised their voices alongside the officers who stood now as allies, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden light down upon them, a promise of the dawn to come. The shadows would retreat, and in their place, a brighter future awaited. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. You need to show your support. Every action counts.